This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. If you guys thought the Online Harms Act, or Bill C-36, was going to be bad for Canadians in terms of how they're going to use hate crimes to stifle our free speech, well, just wait till you see what's already happening in this country. Case in point, you got the situation with the Christian activist Bill Whatcott, who back in 2016, he infiltrated a gay pride parade to hand out flyers that contained the good news of the gospel and also some information about the risks associated with a polyamorous and homosexual lifestyle. And for that, he was charged with a hate crime. But back then, thankfully, he was acquitted. A judge tossed this out, and rightfully so. Well, fast forward now to 2024, and the Supreme Court of Canada now wants to take him to trial for this all over again, ladies and gentlemen, and have him charged with the willful promotion of hatred. Check this out. Canadian Christian forced to undergo second hate crime trial after already being acquitted. An Albertan Christian is being forced to undergo a second hate crime trial after already being acquitted in 2021. On February 15th, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that Christian activist Bill Whatcott must be retried for the willful promotion of hatred for distributing flyers warning against homosexual acts during the June 2016 Gay Pride Parade in Toronto. And joining me on the line right now to discuss this is Bill Whatcott. Bill, thank you so much for taking some time once again here on Press for Truth to tell us about this. Now, I want to hear from you, why we're going through this again, why the Supreme Court of Canada has just overruled what another judge has already acquitted you for. But before we get into that, maybe we could start from the beginning. For anybody who's never heard this story yet, maybe you could start us off, take us back to 2016 with what exactly this is all stemming from. Tell us what you did in 2016 and how it got us to this point today.
Yeah, in 2016, it was a bit of a protest against 2013, so we should probably go back to there. That was my first hate speech prosecution, and it was a human rights tribunal, the Saskatchewan Human Rights Tribunal. They ruled that my flyers criticizing the promotion of homosexuality and transgenderism in public schools, they ruled that was hate speech, which I vehemently disagreed with, and ordered me to forever be quiet on the topic. And so rather than do that, I actually first applied to the Vancouver Pride Parade back in 2014 as the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, and identified myself as a gay high priest. And I put on pink hair and a pink goatee and got 5 or 6 other Christians that I talked into it. We went into the Vancouver Pride Parade and put out gospel literature on the risks of the homosexual lifestyle and the criticism of gay pride. Now, thankfully, it seemed in 2014, there was a news article in the Vancouver Sun, I think, or Vancouver Province, that the police were going to beef up security at homosexual parades to make sure I don't sneak into them anymore. But there was no hate crime prosecution, and indeed, the flyer was polemics and some statistical information and gospel that you can be redeemed. The Vancouver Pride Parade did bring out one positive result. A fellow who was a school teacher, he phoned me up. He was struggling with the homosexual lifestyle. He was at the parade, and he actually became involved in my church for 7 months. What happened to him after that, I don't know, but there was a positive change for a time. And maybe there still is, or maybe there isn't. Then I kind of went quiet for a little while. I spent a year in the Philippines. During that time, I created the persona Robert Clinton of the Gay Zombies Cannabis Consumers Association. I did apply in the Toronto Pride Parade to march as an openly Christian man. They rejected the application and said that all subsequent applications will be rejected as well. So they put me in the closet, and then I applied as Robert Clinton, the gay zombie cannabis consumer, and they embraced it. They took my $100 and allowed me in the parade. Interestingly, I was within 50 yards of Rona Ambrose and the Canadian Conservative Party, if they think that party is going to defend family values. Between me and Rona was a whole bunch of men who were literally naked, Some of them were wearing dog masks and dog collars and had BDSM boyfriends whipping their bums as they were crawling on the ground. So Rona saw the same thing I saw, and she was all into it. Me, I was happy I was there to share the gospel. We put out 3,500 flyers detailing the risks of the homosexual lifestyle and also criticizing the Liberal Party of Canada, which was marching in the parade as well. I would have criticized the Conservative Party. I was quite shocked that they were only 50 yards from me. And of course, we offered the good news that homosexuals can be redeemed and improve their behavior for the better. Initially, once I was finished with the parade, we got out of there before they figured out we were there. A lot of homosexuals were opening up our zombie safe sex packages. That's what we called them. They thought they were condoms. Inside was health information and gospel information and a criticism of the Liberal Party. The parade was not terribly respectful. They had a group called the Nuns of Perpetual Indulgence. They were marching with pictures of our Lord on their crotch. There was men naked in full presence of young children. There was a lot of weird kink and different things being promoted there, public sex. And so anyways, this is what the parade is. This is what your tax dollars go to. It gets 19 million a year, 3 levels of government fund it. So I think we have a right to speak about it. They were so enraged when they found out I got into their parade as a gay zombie cannabis consumer, though they themselves approved the application. They launched a $104 million lawsuit on Parliament Hill, and Justin Trudeau himself and Kathleen Wynne, who was the premier at the time, she was an open lesbian, they were named as litigants who were harmed by my flyer. The Liberal Party of Canada was named as a class, and then all the marchers and all the participants in the parade, the spectators, they were named as a class that was harmed by my flyer. And they went for 104 million. They threatened to put me in jail indefinitely if I didn't give them the names of my supporters. Of course, that was not something I was going to do. I was prepared to sit in jail for the rest of my natural life if needed, and pretty much said so much. And when they saw I was serious and that I had no money, and there was no right-wing conspiracy or mega church backing me, which is what they thought, and they discovered me upside down and sideways and didn't get nothing. After they spent maybe $500,000, I'm guessing, in 2 years, they dropped the lawsuit. And then they last act of the Ontario government, 3 days before Doug Ford was to become premier, they put out a Canada-wide arrest warrant because it has to be approved by the Attorney General. Charged me with willful promotion of hatred. I heard of police in 3 different provinces, BC, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, going to previous addresses where I lived and even friends' houses looking for me. And when I started getting phone calls from 3 provinces, I thought, geez, what did I do? This must be serious. And I was kind of worried I was being charged with murder or something. So anyways, I had a Christian lawyer phone and the RCMP to find out why they were looking for me. I was actually up working in the boreal forest of Fort McMurray at the time, north of Fort McMurray. So I guess the cops didn't think to look for me up there. Then I found out it was for my gospel stunt in 2016. This was 2018. And I turned myself in Calgary, and they flew me back to Toronto. I went through one trial. The judge was not my friend, but thankfully for me, the infectious disease expert, who was a real expert for the prosecution, she was a medical doctor with a practice in HIV in downtown Toronto, so very relevant to my flyer. She perjured herself and said a whole lot of my flyer was lies, and some of her own research papers indicated that she agreed with me on the spread of infectious diseases in the LGBT community. And so she really ruined her credibility. And thankfully, I had a high-powered lawyer, the same lawyer that had Paul Bernardo, John Rosen. I don't know why he took my case, because he probably got 1/3 of the fees. Some of it was through legal aid. And then over the years, I raised a little bit, but nothing close to his regular fees. And yet I had $1 million defense through him. And he completely discredited their expert. The other one who was going to be an expert, his name is Nick Muley, and that's very relevant for now. He's a homosexual activist academic from York University. His specialties, if you look on the York website, you don't have to take my word for it. His papers and his specialties are queering social work, kink. He wrote a paper on the importance of letting homosexuals sodomize each other in public parks. Those need to be safe spaces. And police need to leave homosexuals alone when they're snorting crystal meth during group sex. I don't know. You can ask him for the logic on that one. And then I think queer liberation, and he belongs to a group called Queer Ontario. So the judge was not a flaming social conservative Christian. He just looked at the guy's expertise. There's not much there to offer on whether I committed a hate crime or my flyer is a hate crime. The Crown prosecutor used about $10,000 of taxpayers' money for this guy to write a paper alleging that my zombie picture was an attempt to make gay men look like zombies and they're out of this world. And then he was saying that my flyer was committing microaggressions and that these microaggressions lead to minority stress. The minority stress that homosexuals in the parade felt from my flyer leads to their bad health outcomes like drug use and HIV. So the paper's nonsense.
So,
Yeah.
so you do this in 2016, 2018,
Yep.
essentially rung through the trial. The judge acquits this, says, no, this is nonsense, tosses it out. And then this gay activist, this LGBTQ activist comes around, Nick, and he suggests that, oh, they overlooked the microaggressions from your flyer.
Actually,
And so that caused the Superior Court judge to say, yep, let's ring him through the trial again.
nope, it was actually the Superior Court judge that read about the microaggressions, and he was very differential and said that Nick is truly an academic, which I would argue is not the case, but that he really doesn't inform the court in a way to help him find out if I committed a hate crime. So he accepted the infectious disease expert in case I lied, because one of the truths in a hate crime is truth. Supposed to be, I don't think it is anymore. They found that I spoke the truth, and the expert, the real expert, and she was an expert, she really went beneath herself advocating for LGBT. She perjured herself, so that ruined her credibility, saying that my flyer was all lies and wrong, and that there is no risk in the homosexual lifestyle. That simply isn't true. And then her and I had a different idea on HIV. She thinks because you can go on medications forever that it's just fine. I would argue that that's not a good idea. Nick, on the other hand, was not relevant. So he accepted one expert, declined the other. Now, the Ontario Court of Appeal, when the Crown prosecutor, they drop human trafficking cases, they drop large drug dealing cases, they drop car thefts, things that create actual victims because they can't try them in the proper 30-month period that you're generally expected to get a trial. Well, they dropped all of this, and rather than drop mine after I won an acquittal, at that point they could tell the gay activists, look, we actually went to trial with the guy and he won. No, they're spending more taxpayers' money on an appeal. And the appeal court, all three of them were Trudeau appointees. All three of them have been appointed since Trudeau's been the prime minister, and it's the Liberal government that appoints them. They said that because Nick Muley didn't get his say in court, and because his paper wasn't accepted as expert evidence and the paper's delusional, there's nothing there that really speaks to my state of mind when I put the flyer out.
Mhm.
Anyways, we have to have a trial now with him in it. He's got to be in it, his point of view.
And what do you
And
think their objective here is? Because it seems that they're seeking 18 months imprisonment, but I mean,
correct.
what is the end game agenda here? This could potentially be precedent setting. So what do you think they're hoping to achieve by having you be the first domino to fall?
Well, I had a real problem with the Supreme Court ruling, of course, in 2013, but at least that didn't leave you with a criminal record and a lengthy period of incarceration. It could be a life-altering fine. They can give big fines, but and there was sort of a bar of speech. Even if I got convicted, the more strident rhetoric, which I think should be allowed in a democracy, would be banned, and that would be bad because strident rhetoric should be allowed. Maybe not a call for genocide, but none of my flyers ever had that. My flyers, were saying you're going to go to hell if you don't accept Jesus. And if you're a homosexual, you won't inherit the kingdom of heaven, and you will put yourself at risk of AIDS. And some of my flyers were pretty blunt, and they should be allowed.
And
But
to be
at least
clear, it is being done out of love. To be clear, you know, this idea that what you were doing was hateful towards the LGBTQ community is nonsense, because what you were doing is coming from a good place, correct?
it is coming from a good place. I don't accept that I have to have the welfare of homosexuals as my primary concern. My flyers that I was found guilty of in the Supreme Court of Canada were actually out of concern for children being propagandized by gay activists. And I didn't care, and I still don't care about the feelings of homosexual activists. And quite frankly, they don't care about my feelings. They're running around in the parade with pictures of Jesus on their crotch, which has no logical argument. All of my flyers were polemical, researched. They had an argument, whether they were polite or not. This flyer was actually some concern for the homosexuals themselves. This flyer in 2016, which they want to put me in jail for in 2018, was addressed to gay pride attendees. So it's even hard to see how I committed a hate crime, because my audience was them. So how am I promoting hatred against them? I'm telling them to keep their pants up, and these are the risks. And there is a chance of redemption. My first flyers were polemics against the promotion of homosexuality in public school. I think 20 years later, because it actually started in 2001, that thing, it took till 2013 to wrap up. I'm still happy with the flyers. This flyer was somewhat different. It was actually more tame. So the idea that even the Whatcott decision was the last word is not correct. The Whatcott decision did leave a small window of free speech where you could safely talk without being prosecuted. It was, in my view, way too low, the bar. Now, if I get convicted for this flyer, and I don't believe this is hyperbole, I don't think there will be free speech. Because if this flyer cannot escape legal prosecution, I don't know what you can say. I don't think you can say anything safely critical of the LGBT activists and their parade and what they do in schools. I don't think you can say anything without escaping prosecution. I
And
don't see where the
yeah,
bar for free speech is.
and that's why I see this as a potentially major precedent-setting case in terms of how they are going to move forward with that particular community. And you right now are you know, they're kind of making you the poster child for this. So what is the dates? When are you actually going to trial? And and what, yeah, when can people expect to try to, you know, support you when you do go?
Well, my last trial wrapped up 2021. The Supreme Court rejected my appeal of the Ontario Court of Appeal. The Ontario Court of Appeal was August 2023, this year. The Supreme Court rejected it last month, my appeal that they overturned the Ontario Court's spurious decision. My next court date, we don't have a trial date yet. My next court date is Monday, this coming Monday, so 2 days from now, 2 days from when you and I are talking about this. That date, they'll do very little. I have to go back to Ontario. You know, obviously that's where my trial is going to be. I live in Alberta, but I'm going to move to Ontario until the trial is over. So we'll probably set a date for April, and then in April, they will set a date for the judicial pretrial. I expect that I will be on trial in 2024, probably late 2024, maybe early 2025.
Right. Well, I know that this is going to resonate with viewers of this channel, and we're going to want to get, you know, behind you, and I really encourage people to do so. So, you know, typically these things can cost a lot of money. I'm very well aware of that, and I hope people understand that too. So, is there currently a way for people to be able to support you financially? Is there one go-to link where people can go right now after watching this video to send you a little bit of money to help out with this situation?
Well, I certainly appreciate that. Bless yous. There is LifeSite News has been a big loyal supporter of mine over the years, and they set up something called a LifeFunder. So I guess if you put LifeFunder Bill Whatcott, BillWhatcott, I think it's the first hit on the page. LifeFunder is a alternative to GoFundMe. When I was in jail the first time in 2018, my wife, in her naivety, well-meaning naivety, put up a GoFundMe. It raised, I think, about $10,000 in 24 hours. And then GoFundMe shut it down, refunded all the money to the donors, and told my wife she can never have another GoFundMe again. So I guess the right to even have a legal defense is not respected by GoFundMe, because that's all it was my lawyer fees were way more than 10 grand. And plus I lost my job, for crying out loud, but GoFundMe didn't care. LifeFunder does care, and they do get the money right to me.
Yeah, perfect.
They're actually good people, and they cover a lot of worthy causes besides my own.
Yeah, I've had the exact same thing happen with GoFundMe, where they caved to the mob rule and decided in their favor and had my campaign terminated as well and the money refunded. But at any rate,
I never use them again. Never use them
me
again.
neither.
No,
but
I'd rather the 2% that LifeFunder takes. That is fine with me. It's really good.
Yeah. Well, I want to strongly encourage people to contribute to this particular campaign and to this particular cause, because, as I said, this is, not only a potentially precedent-setting case, but this is also a situation where you're a man trying to go out and plant those seeds of the good news of the gospel, and it's being rung through the courts for doing so. And I think that is a serious sign of the times, that Christians and any lover of free speech ought to get behind you and this issue. So I want to encourage everybody to do check that top link in the description below. Make sure you take some time today to support Bill Whatcott in this case. And I guess in closing, do you have any final thoughts about this crazy situation you've been thrust into here, like 8 years after the fact, and where you might see this go from here?
It's a real unknown. I actually didn't expect to win the last case, because they've put tremendous energy and resources into prosecuting me. And, Toronto lawyers are not known to be defenders of free speech. If it's Christians, they'll defend every, moral aberration out there and call it freedom. But actual Christian speech, they tend not to protect. They've locked up a lot of other people for peacefully protesting abortion and things. Quite amazingly, I did get acquitted, and I think that shocked the Crown. I think they're trying to make sure the fix is in this time, with Nick Muley's testimony needing to be considered and his microaggressions needing to be considered. So it strikes me as an uphill fight. But the one thing I'd like to leave with your viewers is, for those of us who know Jesus Christ, we serve an infinite God. And in my weakness, his strength can be made manifest. So that leaves me a certain degree of peace. And whether I'm convicted or not, I really believe I'm on the right side of history and truth. So with that, there's lots of reason to be optimistic.
Absolutely. Well said. I just want to, thank you for taking that stance and having the, the courage to do so in the face of, the system who's trying to shut you down. So I really appreciate you breaking this all down for us. Once again, I want to encourage everybody to please check those links in the description. These are the kind of situations that we here at Press for Truth need to get behind. So if that's something that you feel you want to do today, please click that top link in the description below. Once again, Bill, thank you so much for breaking this all down for us. Maybe we'll have you on again once once they decide what they're going to do here, and we'll get an update from you.
Certainly. Thank you for having me, and God bless you.
You too. Take care. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.